Imagine telling a lie so massive,
Mm.
so incredibly heavy that it actually forces the truth to show up.
Yeah, that is a wild concept.
Right. I mean, if you fake your resume to get, a mid-level corporate job, you might get fired.
Sure.
But if you fake being a literal deity to get a date,
Mm-hmm.
you might accidentally start a regional war.
Which is exactly what we're looking at today.
Exactly. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are unpacking an ancient text that honestly, it reads less like a traditional myth and much more like a psychological thriller.
Absolutely. It's the ultimate case of identity debt.
Yeah. We're looking at this source material involving a young weaver, a wooden mechanical bird, and a disguise that entirely altered the fate of a kingdom.
It's such a phenomenal piece of source material, too.
Our mission today is to explore what happens when you borrow a persona you just cannot afford to pay back. And the immense danger of a deception that grows far, far larger than the person who created it.
Because if you just read the back cover summary of the story, you might expect a lighthearted folktale about a clever trickster.
Right, like a comedy of errors.
Exactly. But diving into the text, the tone is actually deeply reflective. It really functions as a profound meditation on the weight of the masks we choose to wear.
Man, that terrifying moment when the world demands that you actually become the mask you put on.
Right.
So let's get right into the mechanics of this story. We start with a young weaver in a busy, highly stratified ancient town.
And the text goes out of its way to establish his utter lack of status.
Yes, he is quite literally a nobody. He's not born into wealth. He holds no royal position, no political influence, zero leverage whatsoever.
His entire existence is just tied to the repetitive, invisible labor of his hands at the loom.
Right.
And that baseline of total anonymity is the crucial variable here. In the rigid social hierarchy of the ancient world, a weaver is just a face in the crowd.
Just a completely average guy.
Yeah, and understanding his complete powerlessness makes the sheer scale of the leap he's about to attempt just so much more staggering.
Because the catalyst for that leap happens during a festival near the royal palace.
Right, the inciting incident.
Yeah. The weaver is standing in the crowd, and he catches sight of the princess.
Oh, wow.
And the source describes this not as like a passing crush, but as a complete psychological hijacking.
That's a great way to put it.
Her grace and calmness enter his mind and just refuse to leave. His loom goes silent, food loses its taste, sleep completely vanishes.
We are looking at the classic physiological symptoms of an all-consuming fixation here.
He is paralyzed by a desire that his society dictates is impossible to fulfill.
Because the psychological gap between them is an insurmountable barrier. The princess represents an existential impossibility for him.
I mean, she's guarded by towering stone walls and the unyielding order of a massive kingdom.
Exactly. So he suffers in silence at first because he fundamentally understands the reality of his position.
Well, he understands it until the pressure breaks him.
Right.
He eventually confesses this impossible desire to his absolute closest friend, who happens to be a brilliantly talented carpenter.
A very convenient friend to have.
Yeah, and the text notes this friend can shape wood into things that seem almost alive.
Which is key.
But wait, I'm struggling with the carpenter's logic here. Let's unpack this.
Sure.
As a friend, if someone tells you they're obsessing over a princess, you don't usually build them a getaway vehicle to break into the palace.
No, you definitely don't.
You buy them a drink and tell them to move on.
Yeah.
What is the carpenter actually getting out of this? Like, is it just a massive ego trip for his engineering skills?
That is a really fascinating angle to consider. The carpenter's reaction highlights a very specific kind of blindness that often accompanies extreme technical talent.
Oh, like he's just focused on the problem.
Exactly. He hears this highly dangerous, socially ruinous desire, and instead of acting as the voice of moral reason, he processes it strictly as an engineering challenge.
He completely isolates the problem from its consequences.
Yeah, he simply looks at the palace walls and thinks, well, there may be a purely mechanical way over them, even if it's dangerous.
And the mechanical solution he designs is just completely unhinged.
It really is.
The carpenter decides to build a mechanical, incredibly lifelike wooden Garuda.
Which, for those unfamiliar, the Garuda is the legendary bird-like creature that serves as the divine mount for Lord Vishnu in Hindu tradition.
Right, and he doesn't stop at the vehicle. He crafts a perfect wearable illusion.
The craftsmanship described is meticulous. He creates a crown, a replica of the divine discus, the sacred conch shell, majestic garments.
It's a full production.
It is. If we look at the historical context of the text, Ancient Indian literature often featured a deep fascination with automatons, these flying wooden machines called yantras.
So it's kind of like ancient sci-fi.
Exactly. The Carpenter is tapping into this highest tier of ancient science fiction to essentially build a perfectly tailored, highly convincing Lord Vishnu costume for the Weaver.
And picture the sheer cinematic visual of the execution here. It's the dead of night.
Right.
The Weaver, a man who spends his entire life covered in dust and thread, dresses himself in this immaculate divine form.
It's quite the contrast.
Yeah, and he climbs into this wooden mechanical bird, and he actually flies up toward the palace balcony.
The audacity is just staggering.
It really is. It's the ultimate heist. But instead of robbing a vault, they are trying to bypass the divine right of kings.
Especially when you consider the psychological gamble. When he arrives at the balcony, the princess is utterly astonished.
Naturally.
And the text notes that she believes him. She genuinely believes she is being visited by the divine.
Which, I always wonder how the illusion held up close.
Right, like the sawdust and the paint.
Yeah. But I suppose if you are standing on your balcony in the middle of the night and a literal deity descends from the sky, skepticism isn't your first response.
No, it's not. And you have to factor in the overwhelming cultural weight of the symbols he's wearing.
Oh, definitely.
The human brain relies on heuristics, mental shortcuts. When the princess sees the Garuda, the Dasikas, the crown, the flight itself.
All in the dim, shadowy light of night.
Exactly. The sheer impossibility of a peasant building a flying machine short-circuits her critical thinking.
She suspends her disbelief because the visual evidence aligns perfectly with her deep cultural conditioning.
Precisely.
So the nightly visits begin. The Weaver pulls it off. He bypasses the entire social order and gets exactly what he wanted.
He does.
But this is the exact moment the narrative pivots from a romance into a thriller.
Because the scale of the deception has grown too large to contain.
Yeah, you simply cannot fly a giant mechanical bird into a royal palace every single night without creating ripples.
Cause and effect takes over. The deception inevitably leaks.
Yep. The king eventually discovers that his daughter is receiving midnight visits from someone claiming to be Vishnu.
And here's where the psychology gets really fascinating.
Oh, it's my favorite part. You would think a king discovering a secret midnight visitor would be furious or intensely protective.
Or at least highly skeptical of a guy in a bird suit.
Right. But the king's reaction is entirely driven by ego. He completely buys the illusion too.
Because kings are susceptible to a very specific kind of blindness. The text provides a brilliant observation of political psychology here.
He doesn't investigate at all.
No, instead of investigating, the king is flooded with immense, intoxicating pride. He genuinely believes his royal bloodline has been explicitly chosen by the divine.
He doesn't check the gears or look for sawdust because his ego desperately needs the illusion to be real.
It is weaponized confirmation bias.
He literally thinks to himself, if the Lord himself favors us, who can stand against me?
Right.
It's like forging a doctor's signature to get out of a high school gym class, and the school accidentally uses that note to appoint you as the Surgeon General.
That is a great analogy.
The Weaver thought he was just running a highly localized scam for his own love life, but he accidentally armed a monarch with misplaced geopolitical confidence.
And the escalation is rapid and terrifying.
Yeah.
The king takes this perceived divine endorsement and weaponizes it to fulfill his own pre-existing desires for conquest.
Because of course he does.
Believing he has an invincible, literal god backing his military, the king begins preparing for a massive war against his regional enemies.
So a private, desperate lie told by a lonely weaver has just mutated into a kingdom-wide threat.
Thousands of lives are suddenly on the line.
Just because one guy's friend was a little too good at woodworking.
It perfectly illustrates how fragile systems of power can be when they are built on unquestioned narratives.
The king's ambition turns the weaver's personal secret into public policy.
Placing the imposter in a remarkably terrifying position.
And the news of the impending war reaches the town, and naturally it reaches the weaver. You can almost feel the ice-cold panic setting in.
Oh, absolutely.
He runs back to the carpenter, the engineer who designed this mess, and he is pleading. He says, "What shall I do? I am no god. I am only a weaver."
The internal illusion shatters at that moment.
Yeah.
The weaver is forced to look at the hard reality of his own limitations.
And tellingly, for the first time in the entire narrative, the brilliant carpenter has absolutely no answer.
Right. He can build a machine to bypass a physical wall, but his engineering cannot solve a moral and political catastrophe.
The trap has snapped shut, and time runs out.
The day of the battle arrives.
Yeah, and the source paints this incredibly tense, visceral picture. The king and his massive army march out onto the battlefield.
Thousands of soldiers